you.
All right, and let me go ahead and give the introduction again. And now we have Executive Director Lisa Vega to get an update on our elementary feeder.
Yeah, so thank you, Lane. Good evening, everyone. It's so wonderful to come back from our Thanksgiving November holiday break. So hopefully everybody had spent some really great time with their family and friends and ate some really yummy foods that we all cooked right in our kitchen. So I wanted to highlight what we did in Dallas ISD for the month of November. And so this wasn't just only for our elementary schools, but this is for all our schools in Dallas ISD. And so the month of November really highlighted gratitude. And so some of the things that we did to honor and to celebrate all of our principals and assistant principals in Dallas ISD is we had some really great activities and really some great appreciation gifts for all of our principals and assistant principals for every week for the month of November. And so we highlighted them as gratitude weeks. And to kick us off, our principals received some really nice fancy tote bags, lunch bags, with some stainless steel beverage, coffee cups for everyone to use. And the lunch bag was filled with some really yummy snacks that we know that principals do not stop to eat, right? And so they had a tote bag full of yummy treats to be able to have during the day. The second week was highlighted with social media swag, really honoring principals and assistant principals for the hard work that they do every day for their children, their schools, their communities through words of appreciation, gratitude, and just really showing how appreciative we are of the work that they do. The third week, principals and assistant principals were honored with gratitude journals so that they could be reflective of the work that they're doing on their campuses. They received these really cool wireless earbuds, and then I'll tell you why. And then also some daily giveaways and some gift cards that were raffled off for them. So in the last week was the week that they were off and at home enjoying Thanksgiving holiday break with families and friends. And the wireless earbuds came in because a special playlist was created just for them on Spotify so that they could enjoy some favorite songs, some tunes to really exemplify how proud we are of them, but also just how appreciative we are of them. And so we followed the quote, simple to give to yourselves that what you need, which is love and appreciation without judgment. And so that was really what I wanted to highlight. So thank you, Ms. Shaw, for being kind of throwing that in there as a reminder of the things and the work that we do for our campuses, but to really take the time to honor our instructional leaders that are on our campus. And so I'm not sure if Mr. Evie Castle is on yet, but I really wanted to highlight what we did in Dallas ISD for gratitude for our principals and assistant principals.
Thank you, Ms. Vega. All right, that
You're
is
welcome.
some great updates. Thank you. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Mitchke, Dan Mitchke, our trustee from District 3. And if Mr. Castle comes on, he can give us an update after Mr. Mitchke. Here you go, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Lane. Just a couple of brief updates. First, I wanted to let you know that Ms. Vega and I are now pursuing a program that Vicki Martin, one of the community leaders in the Bales neighborhood, actually throughout Far East Dallas, has brought to our attention. It's called the Artist Outreach, and it's an innovative arts program for elementary schools. Mesquite ISD has it, and actually Bales has it. And they're looking to expand this programming to elementary schools in the 75228 zip code area. As you know, in the BA feeder, we have 9 elementary schools. All but 3 of them are in 75228. The 3 that are not are Sanger, Hexter, and Riley. So hopefully we'll be able to work out something with them. The program's free to Dallas ISD, And as Ms. Vega has just put in the chat, she checked with Mrs. Kennedy, and Bales loves the program. So they are eager to launch the program, and I'm confident that Ms. Vega will find some way to let them creep into the 75218 zip code area as well. So, okay, it's December 13th. Great. The second thing is, as you know, we have a new COVID variant out there, and that's probably going to require us, nothing's decided to continue the mask mandate for a little while longer. So there's nothing imminent in terms of removing the mask mandate that is in the works, but we were hoping that it wouldn't be much longer, and I think we need to just have the health authorities reassess that for us. The other day we had a meeting with Riley. As you know, the old Riley building will be replaced with a brand new building. And that was our third community meeting. A lot of enthusiasm. That school looks better than its inside yard.
The DBA.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Kennedy. Thank you. So Riley is going to be rebuilt, and we've had the third community meeting, and we're on the road to I think a fabulous new school with all of the modern amenities and open spaces and energy efficiency and high technology. So we're really excited about that. Hexter and Keast are also in line for new buildings, and though the community input process, which is the very first step, will be starting in the next month or so. So I will keep you up to date on that. And those two schools are also among the worst in terms of physical condition, inside and out, when our experts did a comprehensive review of the buildings. And then finally, I wanted to update you on redistricting. Now, let me underscore that redistricting doesn't mean attendance zones. It just means the voting districts for trustees. And every 3 years, the 9 trustees in Dallas are up for election. It's a staggered system where it's 3 1 year, 3 the next year, and 3 the next year. And they represent separate parts of Dallas ISD. Obviously for District 3, I represent at the East Dallas area, east of the lake, as well as the Vickery Meadow area. Every 10 years, the law requires us to rebalance the population of the districts to take into account changes in demographics, changes in the total population, to make sure that the districts are relatively even in size, and that there are minority opportunity districts that reflect the population of Dallas. Up until about a week ago, it looked like there would be no changes to District 3. It now appears that with all the other shifting that's going on in the other districts to try to achieve those balances, that District 3 will be absorbing some of the area that is currently now in District 2. District 2 is kind of a weird trustee district that circles Highland Park. And it appears that we in District 3 will either get a portion on the west side of the lake that goes right along the west side of the lake along Lothar and all the way up to the top of the lake, or we would get in addition to what we already have, not relinquishing any property, but we would also get the area near SMU and the village and including up to and including the Dandy Rogers School. None of this would have any effect on the Bryan Adams feeder pattern, but it would have an effect on the trustee district that Bryan Adams feeder is part of. So we'll either get part of the west side of the lake, or we'll get part of the village area and the Dandy Rogers Elementary School, which would not become part of the BA feeder pattern in any event. So I do feel obligated to give you this new news, because we've had about 3 meetings and I've said it doesn't look like anything's going to change, but now it does look like one of those 2 things are going to change. Again, no changes to the attendance boundaries for where kids go to school. So with that, I will be quiet, and I look forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, moving on. We're going to go ahead. I still don't think Mr. Castle's here, but if he jumps on, we can slot him in. Going to go ahead. So our presentation tonight is discussing college access and admittance resources supporting Bryan Adams, as well as extracurricular opportunities at BA. And tonight we have Ms. Sarah Arquidez, the Executive Director of Academic Success Program Dallas, and Mr. Bott, our Bryan Adams principal. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Bott, I think, to start off, and then hand it over to Sarah. Mr. Bott?
Thank you. And good evening, everyone. You see my virtual background. I got the Cougars behind me, right? Always, always, always. Really proud of just all of our athletes, our young men here, our football team had the best record in over 35 years at BA. So really proud of them. They got to go play in the Star in Frisco. So it was just a really cool atmosphere. So really excited about that opportunity for our kids. But there's all sorts of opportunities for students at Bryan Adams. So before I get into specifically what some other opportunities are, I want to send this over to Sarah for her portion of the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Bott. Everyone, I am really excited to be here this evening. We have been working with Bryan Adams for 15 years now, and I have been in my job for 10 years, which feels unbelievable. A couple months ago, somebody was asking me what my relationship with Mr. Castle was, and I essentially took on my job as a leader at the same time he became principal at Bryan Adams. So I feel like I have had a journey with Bryan Adams, our students in the feeder pattern, and I'm really excited now because I've been around long enough to not only see our students go on to graduate from high school, from college, but now we're starting to hire staff members who have gone to college with some of our students. So I'm actually seeing everything come full circle. I'm really excited to talk about college today. And I think it leads into all of the amazing work that all of you do for our students throughout the feeder pattern. I also know that I am fiercely passionate about college access and how our students get to college, how they navigate that process. And I love to talk about this. So I always have a lot to say, and I talk really fast. I did a presentation for 2 hours at Thomas Jefferson a couple weeks ago, and one of the teachers said that they didn't think I breathed in the entire presentation. And so if I speak too fast, definitely drop questions in the chat, write them down. I want to answer them, but mostly I'm just really excited to share some of the great work that has been happening throughout the Bryan Adams feeder pattern and what that all looks like when our students leave us. So I like to start these presentations saying, I want to talk about the state of college because college changes, affordability changes. So I can't talk about one without the other. And I hope that this will be a great way to lead into the conversation that Mr. Bott has about extracurriculars and some of the things going on at Bryan Adams. But first and foremost, I like to level set a presentation. A lot of people know a little bit about ASP or they don't know anything at all. And I really just want to reiterate the fact that for me, it's not about access to opportunity. It is about access to every single opportunity for every single student in Dallas ISD. And for me, that starts as young as when they go into kindergarten. I want to make sure that students have every opportunity available to them, that we're never taking anything off the table from them, and particularly that we are growing and changing with students as they grow and change throughout high school. This is one of our Bryan Adams alums. Her name is Leslie. She graduated in 2017. She went to Albion College in Michigan, which ASP partners with. And we have such a great partnership with them that our students pay less than $160 a month to go to college. And she just graduated with a BA in environmental studies and a concentration in law, justice, and society. And she is doing a fellowship in solar energy, where she joins PhD and master's students from institutions like Duke, University of North Carolina. So she is doing amazing, amazing things. And she's been out of college for, less than 6 months. And for me, that's always what it's about, is making sure that every student has access to those opportunities. The other thing that's really important to me is that we consider the fact that college may not be for everyone, but it should be for everyone at Bryan Adams. And that's to say that students should have that option when they leave us. Again, it's about making sure that we keep every opportunity available to them. I know that not everyone needs to go to college or is ready to go to college, but I always want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to possibly support them in having that option available to them. So you may be wondering who ASP is. So we are nationally recognized expertise in college counseling. So we do partner with Dallas ISD. We are contracted to provide expert guidance in college and financial aid processes. We are a nonprofit 501c3, but we are far from just being volunteers. I actually train our staff to be full-time college experts on the campuses that we serve. As I said, Bryan Adams has been with us for 15 years. It was one of the original pilot schools when they brought us into Dallas ISD to help students gain acceptance to top tier colleges and universities. And now we're open enrollment and open access program. Where does this expertise come from? I sit on the board of the Common Application, which is a coalition of about 750 colleges throughout the country that utilize one application. While each individual college has their own requirements, students can use a single application. What I'm most proud of, however, is that I sit on the board of the Coalition for Access, Affordability, and Success. This is 150 colleges and universities that are committed to high graduation rates, high retention rates, and making college affordable so that regular kids like our kids are able to afford to go to college. It's not just about the ones who can afford to be there. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means today. I'm also on the board of an Ivy League institution, the University of Pennsylvania, an institution where we have sent several Bryan Adams students, and they have also graduated from there. Caltech, a leading technology institution, the University of Texas at Austin, the University of Chicago and Williams College, a top liberal arts college. I also am on the expert witness list to Congress to testify on issues related to financial aid, FAFSA, affordability, and most recently, the CARES Act funding that colleges have been given to support students through this difficult time. So we're really, really great at what we do, and we are nationally recognized for what we do. And the benefit of that is that our students benefit from that expertise. So every single student at Bryan Adams High School has someone to help guide their family through this process. And I think that we're so ingrained in the high schools that our students and families don't see us as an ASP, they see us as the college person, but sometimes it can be really challenging to know what that actually means. But I do want to reiterate that every student at every single ASP high school receives this additional support for free. We're really excited about our advisor this year at Bryan Adams. Her name is Ms. Perez. She's actually an ASP alumnus who graduated from the School of Science and Engineering and went to Boston University and has a BS in biomedical engineering, and decided, similar to my own story, that she wanted to do some good in the world. And so now she's there helping our first generation students and families navigate this process by sharing her own stories and experience. So we're really, really excited to have Miss Frez with us, but it feels a little bit strange because I do know her as Marietta as one of our former students. Before I jump into this, I do want to talk about the fact that for most students that ASP works with, college admissions is a zero-sum game. And when I say that, I mean that it's either a yes or a no. You'll either get into college or you won't. And then the next question is whether or not you can afford to be in college. And that one is probably the hardest part of this entire thing, because finding a college to accept a student is easy. Finding a college to successfully fund and graduate a student is tough. And that's where we get into this idea that students either have the money to go to college or they don't. And one thing that's really important to know about the Bryan Adams feeder pattern is the vast majority of our students will need all of the money to go to college. The expected family contribution, that's what the FAFSA says our families can afford to pay. Our median has been it has been zero for at least the last 4 years. So we're talking about students who essentially need full scholarships to be able to afford college. The federal government doesn't think their family has anything that they can pay. If we look at our average is between $1,200 and $1,500 for that expected family contribution. But we know that averages are often skewed by some outliers. So I do prefer to talk about medians, but even the difference between having $0 and $1,200 to go to college isn't enough really to say that we aren't dealing with students that have the highest possible need. These are the students I'm most concerned about. I'm not worried if a family can pay $80,000 a year, they're gonna have plenty of opportunities and things are going to probably work out somewhere. I'm worried about the vast majority of students in our feeder pattern. I know that I was brought here to talk a little bit about the top 10% rule. And so I want to do a very, very brief introduction about what it is, what it's not, and what it means for our students. So in 1997, the state of Texas passed a law that guaranteed students who graduated from a public high school in the top 10% of their class automatic admission to any and all state public universities. Whether a student or attends a non-ranking high school or not, non-ranking high schools still have to provide a top 10% letter for our Texas public universities if students apply. And I think this is an important thing to think about when you're talking about selling points of Bryan Adams in the comprehensive high schools, especially if families are saying, well, I want to go over to this school because they don't rank. They still have to rank for the top 10% rule. And the benefit of Bryan Adams is that we have a larger top 10% than most schools because we have a larger high school. So more students will benefit from the top 10% rule. What the law doesn't say is that in 2017, UT Austin lowered automatic admission criteria to the top 6%. And that was due to the increase in high school graduates and then an increase in applications. So UT Austin does not apply to the top 10% rule, they're top 6%. And that can be a little bit tricky to help everybody keep straight. I will tell you that in the last 10 years of doing this, UT Austin doesn't do 6.1, they don't do 6.4. It is a flat 6%. So again, when we're thinking about attracting or getting students to think about Bryan Adams, letting them know, the top 6% is going to be bigger here than it's going to be maybe at a school at Townview where we have 120 students. So that top 6% is a lot smaller. This does not mean that students outside the top 10% cannot get into our Texas public universities. It does usually mean that they will not get into UT or A&M. But every college has different cutoffs. They use test scores, they use GPAs, and they have different admissions requirements. So I don't ever want anyone to come away thinking kids can't go to college if they're not top 10%. Kids can have a lot of college options if they're not top 10%. However, it is important to understand that for UT Austin, it is top 6% and it's a hard, fast, bright line. So every student who graduates in the top 6, top 10% of their class will have a seat in the classroom at a Texas public university. It is not automatic, even though it says it's automatic admission. Students must apply by the institutional deadline. They must submit their essays. They must submit any required documents by the deadline. So it's not enough to just be in the top 10% and say, well, I'm going to go to UT Austin because I'm graduating in May. Like, actually today is the deadline for UT Austin and Texas A&M. So really making sure that students and families understand that it is a process once you get into the top 10%, top 6%. It's not automatic. And I really highlighted that part about it guarantees you a seat in the classroom at a public university, because this is another thing that I think that most people don't talk about enough and that they don't understand. The first thing is that it does not guarantee a student a seat in the major of their choice. Each college will handle this differently. So for UT Austin, they use the essays that students submit, and they look very closely at the classes that a student has chosen to take and how academically prepared they are for that major. It is not based on when they apply, how early they apply. It really comes down to what's in that application. So in that way, it is almost like holistic review for majors. It's top 6% for admission, but holistic review for majors. So, you know, when we're helping students and families make decisions about which programs to be in our high school, what classes to take, we have to recognize that all of these things matter all the way through high school. And because of House Bill 5 and how we do, you know, the endorsements, the decisions that students make in middle school can impact their opportunities as it relates to college. The next thing that's really tough, and I know I saw one of our 2020 alums on the video that they were showing about the defenses, and she just reminded me because she and I had this conversation. The top 10% rule has absolutely nothing to do with scholarships or financial aid. And this is where a lot of our kids end up getting stuck because they've been told, work really hard, get in the top 10% and it'll all work out. It doesn't automatically work out. Again, it's a seat in a classroom. Most of our Texas public universities are using a student's GPA and class rank, as well as their SAT and ACT scores to determine scholarship eligibility. Even in the post-COVID test optional world, last year when I started going through our financial aid letters, I saw that many of our students were offered less scholarships than in years prior if they applied test optional. So it really is important to understand how all this works. The other thing that gets a lot of press here in Texas is the free tuition programs, you know, UT Advance, Aggie Assurance, et cetera. They're essentially promise programs at our Texas public universities saying that you'll have free tuition if you make under a certain income range. For most colleges, it's somewhere between $45,000 and $65,000. UT Austin goes up to $125,000. But what they do is they take the federal funds and the state funds that a student qualifies for through submitting their FAFSA and covers tuition with that. So students and families are still left with a pretty significant gap because the colleges are not using institutional funds. I say all this to say that paying for college is complicated. And this is why it does take an expert to help students and families navigate this process. It's also why understanding what all of these things are and aren't only help us do better as educators when we're helping guide students and families. And just to give you a little bit of perspective on those test scores for Texas public universities, so you can see if you have a nearly perfect SAT or ACT score and you're in the top 10%, you'll get $9,000 per year. The tough part about that is that tuition and fees at a Texas public university are a lot more than $9,000 a year. When I looked at UT Dallas in the spring of last year, they were almost at $15,000 per year for tuition and fees. So it's important to note that, you know, just because you have high SAT scores at high class rank, it doesn't mean that Texas's public schools are going to pay for students to be able to go to college. And this is something our students really, really, really struggle with because we talk a lot about scholarships and making them feel like there's just all this money and it all just somehow magically works out. And I have another slide about that. But I do want to use this to say, we've got to be intentional about what we're doing in college. And that starts from, for some students, the womb isn't early enough. And it definitely comes into play when students start high school. The other thing that's important to note is that UT Austin and Texas A&M and College Station do not follow a grid. Texas A&M gives scholarships a lot of times based on a family income. They do a really great job for our low-income students. UT Austin does not give a lot of scholarships, but I went down to Austin a couple of years ago and worked with them on their financial aid packaging. I took 50 letters for the same students for UT and A&M and said, why do these look so differently? And convinced them to change how they were doing financial aid. So it's really important to understand that, it's not just about submitting an application. It's not just about, being low income. There's a lot more math that goes on the backside of helping students get to college. So I have been working with Bryan Adams, like I said, for 10 years for me and 15 years for the organization. And I'm really, really proud of the work that we've been doing, starting with Mr. Castle, but also how intentional we've been with Mr. Bott. And we have really started to focus on this best financial fit for students and keeping options on the table. So I do, while I recognize the value of the top 10% rule for our students, I also think that it's really important to talk about the things that matter a lot more in terms of how our students are going to be able to afford college. First and foremost, I think we all know that our students are more than a score. They're more than their GPA. They're more than their class rank, especially in light of COVID. We've seen such challenging things happening for our students. And I would hate for them to have any limitations placed on them just because of what's been happening. So in that way, I value colleges that practice holistic admissions. That means that they look at our students as whole people. They're going to look at the transcript. The transcript and the grades are important, but so is their personal story. So are their teacher recommendations. I see Mr. Delgado on here. He's written so many great recommendations for our students over the years. So I have to give him a shout out for that for sure. But I want you to know that we should be encouraging students to look at colleges that see them as the amazing people that we know that they are, and that value that. Support resources are so very important. And when I say support, first and foremost, it's about financial aid, because if students can't afford to be there, they won't show up there. If students don't have the academic support that they need to be successful, they are not going to stay, they're not going to graduate. If students are working 3 jobs to be able to pay for college, they're not going to be able to focus on their academics. So above everything else, helping families understand that financial aid really matters. I understand that for some families, it's a dream to go to that really beautiful campus across 75, from our high school, from our feeder pattern, but they just don't prioritize giving our students money. And we don't want families to struggle through that. Excellent academic and extracurricular programs. So, a lot of students may not always know what they want to do when they're graduating from high school. I changed my major 6 times, so I didn't even have it figured out when I got to college. Helping students find places that are going to grow with them is really, really important to me. I think that if you want to be able to become an engineer, but you didn't know that you needed to take pre-calculus or calculus as a senior, you should still have that option and opportunity available to you. So I love colleges that provide that space for students to grow. I also know that smaller class sizes are where our students do better. And mostly it's because we do a great job of nurturing our students across the Bryan Adams feeder pattern. They know that their teachers care about them. They know the adults care about them. I remember one of the most poignant moments I had with a Bryan Adams student. I was driving her to an interview at a big law firm downtown, and she was telling me how Bryan Adams had changed since Mr. Castle came on board. And she said, I just know that the teachers really care about us now. And I think that that's true when we think about where we send kids to college. I want to send our students to college somewhere that's going to care about them as much as we do, and help make sure that they're successful when they don't all know how to navigate the institutional systems that weren't designed for them, and not having families that have had to navigate those systems. Again, all of that ties into high retention graduation rates. So students who stay in college are happy in college, they're finding their success. And colleges that have high graduation rates are getting it done. Again, if you only can graduate students who can afford to be there, whose mom and dad will hire tutors, who will come down there when things go wrong, I don't know that you're doing a really great job. And we all know that some college no degree doesn't pay off the same way, particularly if you're low income. And that becomes even more dangerous if you have some college, a lot of debt, no degree. So I really do want us to focus on thinking about retention rates and graduation rates and helping families understand that those matter. And then, of course, outstanding career prep and alumni connections. You know, if students want to be able to go to medical school, if they want to go to law school, if they want to become teachers, I want to put them in a place that's going to help them get to where they want to go. Because again, like I said, some college no degree is not the end game. For me, it always comes down to, I want all of our students to have it easier and better than I have it, and really make sure that they have every option and opportunity available to them. Really quickly, I'm going to talk briefly about college admissions, and this I have to go through really quickly because I can get in the weeds for a long time. But I think that one of the biggest things we have to understand is that college admissions is not a reward for what students do in high school. It is an evidence-based decision on what a student can and will do with more resources. So colleges evaluate our students in terms of what they've had access to. They do not compare students from Bryan Adams to students at SEM. They really do look at what have students done at Bryan Adams, what have they taken advantage of, what was available to them, and when they come here, will they take advantage of having even more resources? It's also a decision on what they will bring to campus, whether that's extracurricular activities, whether that's their athletic abilities, whether that's their academics, whether that's diversity, socioeconomic, ethnic, etc. There are a lot of reasons that colleges admit students. And I think that we really have to help students understand that colleges chose them for a reason. It is not, you checked all the boxes and didn't screw anything up. It really is who they are as people and who they will become. This is particularly true for competitive majors. So colleges are always trying to figure out if students are academically prepared. Do they understand what majors are and aren't? That's particularly true for our students who want to do engineering, and also true for our students who say they want to become doctors. A lot of them don't understand that you need a 4-year college degree before you apply to medical school. So really making sure that we're helping students understand what career paths look like, and that they can accurately convey that to colleges. And then how can you tell from their activities and experiences? What have they done that shows you that they're ready for this major? And does the application support a case for that fit? So, you know, when our students who want to do STEM ask for recommendation letters, you know, I want to make sure that, you know, they've asked Mr. Delgado for a recommendation letter, that they're not just focusing on the humanities or focusing on the coaches. They really do need to understand that the entire application fits together to create this entire person that fits into a class. And then how are we helping students understand that what they are doing in high school carries over to college? One of the things I like to use as an example is it's really great if your high school wins the state championship in football, that stays at the high school. What did you do? What did you learn that are you going to take to a college campus? And then really just trying to emphasize this idea that quality in activities is always more important than quantity. So students shouldn't feel like they need to join everything and do everything and stress themselves out. If they find 2 or 3 things that they really love and that they really care about, that's going to be enough. So now I just have a slide here of places where our students have graduated in the last 10 years or are currently enrolled. And I'm really, really proud of the fact that we have students represented from coast to coast. And you'll notice here, there's some institutions missing. And again, I really like to focus my conversation on the schools that are doing a great job by our students, making college affordable, retaining our students and graduating them. This is not an exhaustive list, but it is, you know, the list of students that came to mind. Again, watching the video at the start and remembering, you know, Jasmine did go to Case Western. She's still there. We're super proud of her. But also helping our students, helping everyone understand that these are not colleges that our students are thinking about. You know, just because we know about them as educators or people in the college space doesn't mean that our students are going to know about them. So being really intentional about broadening students' horizons, but also helping them understand if you want to go to the Ivy League from Bryan Adams High School, you can absolutely go. We've had Ivy Leaguers almost every single year from Bryan Adams. Not all of them decided to go. Some chose other institutions, but they've all gone and they've all been successful. And we'll have another one graduate from Brown this year. So really, really excited to see all of the places, but also just to reiterate this idea that our kids can go anywhere from Bryan Adams, and making sure that we're reinforcing those messages with students and families. But above anything, the college list is going to matter more than anywhere else. So I'm going to apologize in advance if I picked on your alma mater. Mine's not on here. I should put it on here because they do a terrible job by students as well. But this is why when we talk about affordability and what this looks like for our families, it matters so very much. This is based off actual data. So I didn't mention at the start that we are a data-driven organization. So we collect all of the financial aid letters that students turn in, and I put them into Excel because I was an engineer in my former life. And we start to calculate what it's going to really cost for a student to go to college. And this is what we can see. And then when we put the overlay of our college enrollment data, we'll see that students who say and self-report that they were going to certain institutions never show up. And when it comes down to it, you'll see that it has nothing to do with their test scores or how high their GPA was or whether or not they were in the top 10%. It does come down to money. I have slides that break this out for our middle and upper income families, but really just focusing on these families who essentially would apply to our Texas public schools and not realize that free tuition doesn't mean that they're going to get that in addition to their state and federal aid. And I also put a couple of schools on here that students haven't heard of, but I know that Trustee Mishke is from New York, so he undoubtedly knows Skidmore College, which is a really great place. They ask our students for less than $2,000 a year. They ask our undocumented students for $0 a year, which is not something that's happening in Texas. Babson College, we've sent a lot of students to this top business school in Boston, especially from Bryan Adams. They ask our students for $2,600 a year. So when we're encouraging students to think about college differently, when we're asking our teachers and everyone to be intentional, it really does come down to this, because we've done a lot of math and looked at the data and figured out there are certain places that have made it a priority to focus on making sure regular kids get to go to college and others haven't. And I know that I was doing a presentation a couple of weeks ago and somebody asked me if I've ever asked Baylor why they do this to students. And I will say that I do have conversations with colleges and I've gotten some to do a better job. I talked a little bit about UT Austin, definitely got them down. It used to be $12,000. So, they're getting there slowly but surely. But $6,000 is still a lot of money to a family making $30,000. And we have to be cognizant of that when we're helping advise students. So, what's the value of college? And this one's really tough for me because most of the time when people are talking about this, it's people that have a college degree who benefit from a college degree. So I decided to look this up, and the per capita income in Dallas County in 2019 was about $34,000. And the New York Times put out this great social mobility index that talked about where college graduates were by age 34. And so I looked up some of our area colleges and then some of the colleges that our students don't always apply to, but we encourage them to apply to. And really just looking at this and then putting it in the perspective of the expected family contribution. And there's another slide that usually goes with this that breaks down the expected family contribution. But if we have a median EFC, that means that the vast majority of our families at Bryan Adams are making less than $40,000 per year. So college has a huge benefit to these families, and where they go to college absolutely will matter in terms of their long-term earnings. And I don't say that to be elitist, but one of the things that I've really, really struggled with is the conversation about it doesn't matter where a student goes to college. And, if you have a social safety net, if you have a trust fund, if you have parents that have access to capital to be able to take out student loans, it may not matter. But college is really expensive, and it's starting to matter to a lot more people. But the long-term benefits that our students gain from going to college, it absolutely does matter. And for me, I just know that I wouldn't be where I am making the decisions that I make if I didn't have a college degree. And I do believe that our students are entitled to have that same opportunity. If they choose not to do college, we're going to support them 100%, but I don't ever want to have the conversation about whether or not college is for a student when we all know that it does have long-term benefits and that most of us have benefited from that as well. So, you know, this is just to put it in perspective in terms of, you know, our students can be making more than their entire family in less than 10 years of graduating from college. So, you may be thinking, okay, this all sounds great. How can we help? And one of the things that I think is most important, especially in a post-pandemic world, is to encourage students to find things that they love, both academic and extracurricular. I've noticed that a lot of students have lost a lot of their confidence over the last 2 years, not being in person, not being able to participate in things in the same way. So I like to tell teachers, if they see a spark in a student, either they're good at something academically, extracurricular, you need to say something and encourage students to start exploring that and building that passion, because I don't have to tell you all this, like students are struggling a lot. The mental health challenges are significant. And I think the more that we can do to encourage and rebuild some of that excitement and enthusiasm that our students have, the better off our community is going to be. I always that from middle school to 9th grade is all about exploration. Students should try everything, try different classes, try activities, try clubs. If you don't like it, don't do it, but try things and try and figure out what you do enjoy doing. I don't think we have a lot of problems with families trying to force students to do things that they don't necessarily want to do because they think it looks good for college. But I do think that we don't have students that are willing to try things and fail enough. I think that we have to start building a little bit more of that culture of it's okay if you don't love it, but find something that you do love that you care about. In 10th grade, we should start narrowing this down both in academics and activities that students really love and find ways to take it to the next level. So maybe if they were a member of a club in 9th grade, they run for secretary or treasurer in 10th grade. Or maybe they start a club with some friends because they realize that this is something that's missing in their school community. The same thing is true with academics. You know, I hate this idea that students believe that they can never be a math student if they had one bad year of math. I had lots of bad years of math. I graduated with an engineering degree. You can do it, but you need somebody to encourage that and cultivate that in you. And that's really something that our school communities should be doing for students, because I don't know that they're going to find that validation somewhere else. Again, 11th grade, taking it to the next level. How do they go deeper in those things that they're excited about, that they care about? Summer programs, additional classes, more leadership responsibilities, but also recognizing that students who have to work to help their families are still validated by the college, and making sure that they understand that if that's something that you have to do, it's okay, and that it should be in your college application, because the college absolutely understands that. And that's really true, especially with students that took on extra jobs or helped with virtual schooling in the pandemic. And even our 9th graders or 9th graders who are now 11th graders are going to be feeling that. So just making sure that we're reinforcing that idea that family responsibilities are just as important. If that's what's keeping you from being involved, just making sure that they know that that's important. And then 12th grade is making sure that students don't drop all of their challenging classes, that they don't drop all of the things that they're involved in. Senior fall semester is really tough because there's so many deadlines that they start to put things by the wayside, but making sure that we're trying to cultivate that. But the more that we do on the front end of trying to build this culture around helping them understand the things that matter, so that they don't come into senior year completely blind in terms of the college process, will be so very important. And above all else, remembering that college is an academic decision. Very few of our students are going to be recruited athletes and receive enough money through scholarships to be able to go on to play college athletics. So the transcript is always going to come into play, and helping students and families also understand that. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So a couple of action items for adults, and this is where it is: empowering families to manage their students' education. This one is hard for me because not everyone starts at the same spot in terms of their education. So when I was a first year college advisor, I started talking to my students, and I realized that what separated my kids in the top 10 of the class at Hillcrest High School was one class. It was AP Human Geography. And when I started looking at who took AP Human Geography, they were the neighborhood students who had wealthy parents. They were students who had a sibling who had gone through the high school already. And then when I talked to my first generation students, they shared with me that they were encouraged not to take that class because it would be hard. And that was what was separating my students, was this one class and not having the institutional knowledge. So, you know, when we are thinking about how we're talking to families about college, how we're talking to them about long-term planning, recognizing that grades, class rank, and the classes that students choose to take matter, and they matter a whole lot. I was doing a Woodrow IB parent meeting a couple weeks ago, and somebody asked how they're supposed to ensure that their student gets ranked, because they've been hearing horror stories about rank. And I said, you know, the tough part about it is they cannot hold anybody else accountable for ensuring that their student has taken the classes that they need to get ranked. They need to also own that part of it. But not everybody's going to know how to do that. And so starting as early as middle school, we've got to facilitate a culture where families understand the importance of classes, rank, how that all works, so that when they get into high school, they come in with a framework and they don't find out at the end of their junior year that they didn't take the right classes in order to be eligible for class rank and top 10% admission. And again, a lot of this is just made a lot more challenging by COVID. Hopefully, you know, we'll continue being in person and getting back to where we were prior to that. But again, we've got to build a culture throughout the feeder pattern where families feel empowered to take charge of their students' education, but also know what's important and why it's important, and that we're reaching those families who don't know how the system works, and when the communication may not be designed for them. Because that class rank form and the method for calculating it is complicated. I always have to read it a couple of times before I talk about it with parents. Understanding the importance of your work in the classroom and through your recommendation letters. And this is really for teachers, but it's also for students. What you do in the classroom as a student will affect the letters of recommendation that you receive for college and for scholarships. Similarly, for teachers and administrators, understanding how important those recommendation letters are. It's not a form letter. It has to be what's been happening in the classroom, especially post-COVID, where there's so many changes to grading and what's been happening. Colleges really want to know whether or not a student is academically prepared. Encouraging students to think beyond the schools that they know. I know that there's ideas that all exposure is good exposure, but it's not when students won't keep an open mind and start looking at other options that may make more sense for their family. And again, when we're trying to do all of this at the beginning of their senior year, it can have devastating consequences, not only on their mental health, but also in their ability to be able to go on to successfully apply to college and earn a degree. I know that I have sat with students a lot of times and they said, you know, I wish that somebody had told me about the affordability part sooner. I wish they had told me how few schools actually are going to give my family enough money. And again, that's being intentional about who we're putting in front of our students, how we're talking about it, even down to what flags are on the wall. I can remember a conversation I had with a student, Bryan Adams, a couple of years ago. She said, there have been pennants in my classroom since I was in kindergarten. And I always thought this would work out. And now I'm finding out that, you know, the college gave her a half scholarship and then they wanted $30,000 and it had been her dream. Now she couldn't tell me why it was her dream school, but the pennant had been in her classroom since she was in kindergarten, and she thought that that was going to be the place. Fortunately, after she and I had this conversation, she understood, you know, why we were telling her what we did, and she applied to some other schools, and now she's at Texas A&M. But it was a hard conversation, and a good reminder for me that we can't come in during their senior year and start telling them all of these things that haven't been reinforced by the messaging that we start as early as kindergarten. Helping students find their well-lopsided self. So that goes back to this idea of students just need 2 or 3 things they really care about, so we can plug in the idea for colleges, who they are going to be when they come to a campus. And then remembering Bryan Adams has an expert to help you and your student, and we have amazing high school ambassadors who would probably be willing to come and talk to underclassmen. They'd probably be willing to come to the middle schools and try and get students excited. They host virtual application parties and things like that for each other. So we have really, really great ambassadors. Our alumni are also still super involved and always willing to talk to our students as well when they're in town. So we don't have to navigate this alone, but it's absolutely going to take a village to do this together. And I am really, really excited about all of the work that's been done in the Bryan Adams feeder pattern, because I wouldn't be here getting to do the work that I do without all of the work that you all do. So, you know, thank you for everything that you do, but also please recognize that it's all part of this broader conversation of what happens to students when they leave our care.
Fantastic, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing this. This is, I don't want to take away from you, baby. I think this has been one of our milestone presentations for DBA. So thank you again for being here. It's really, it meant a lot to us. Yeah, do we want to turn it over to questions? I know we're a little bit late as far as updates go, but I do want to encourage, I think we're going to go ahead and turn it over to questions. Possibly, Mr. Bott, we could do extracurriculars as our topic next month, maybe, or you can still, if you want to share some, you can. And school updates, we can decide what to do. But I think in situations like this, we'll always try to get our updates in. But if we run out of time, we run out of time, and I think it's we're having. And I also welcome anyone to send me their updates if we don't get to them, and I'd be happy to package them and put them out on email and to the DBA. But anyway, I'm going to turn it back to Sarah for any questions for Sarah.
So, Mr. Castle, I put a comment in the chat. She mentioned in her presentation that in middle school, parents need to know these things, teachers need to know these things. We need to be counseling our families on courses we should be taking.
Megan, can you speak up? We can't quite hear you. A little louder.
Okay, you know?
A little better. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, we can hear you, but it's just a little low.
Okay, let me try moving to a different space.
Okay, go ahead. But your question is, or you were just wanting to, you had asked Mr. Castle about.
Okay, is that better?
There it is. Perfect. We got you.
Okay. All right. So in the presentation, she mentioned that in middle school, we need to be having these conversations with our families, with our teachers, with our counselors, that these students should be making, they're making important decisions in middle school that are going to impact high school, that are also going to impact college and the things that, you know, the colleges that these kiddos can get into and what's going to be available to them. Is there some sort of plan in place? I mean, I understand that this is in place at Bryan Adams, but do we have something in place at our middle schools in our feeder pattern in order to help us parents and teachers make these decisions with our kids? Like, is there some sort of trickle down, or are we missing that opportunity in the middle school to start building this before we get to Bryan Adams?
Yeah, Megan, very good question. Part of our master schedule presentations, so what schools will be doing is they'll be going down to the feeder patterns in January, and what will happen is the counselors will present information to students regarding courses to take, and then they'll also be presenting the information to parents.
Right, but do they know what this woman just shared with us?
High school counselors probably have a stronger knowledge of it, and that's why I love that our middle school principals are here to recognize this adjustment that can be made there. But what we're going to be doing is working with all of our schools within the Bryan Adams feeder pattern and the schools that I oversee to say, what are those meetings, what's happening there, what's the information that's being disseminated, in addition to the point of like, why would we need to take algebra as an 8th grader, right? What does this afford the student? And the other piece too is like, how does it affect rank? So there's a pro and con to these things. Like, are you okay as a parent having your kid take algebra as an 8th grader? And that's going to be part of their class rank, in the 8th grade, but they also free up an opportunity to take additional math classes at high school level that will set them up for college and on an engineering or medical track, right? So these are conversations that will definitely be had, and this information will be shared with our students as well as our parents in January timeframe as they start to make course selections for the following school year.
Okay, so from having recently gone through this, and I'm about to go through this, I have 2 students who are in transition years. I've got a 5th grader at Hexter and an 8th grader at Hill. And after having gone through my 5th grader or my 8th grader going through 5th grade at Hexter, I now am very aware that these decisions are made in 5th grade because they start mapping out their courses for, they start choosing courses in 5th grade for 6th grade. So they're going to need, if they're going to plan on taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, then they need to know that in 5th grade right now.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point. And just something that's really cool about the district is there is now a policy actually that our 5th graders, if they score at the master's level, meets your master's level, they will automatically be put into the honors courses, which will put them on that trajectory. So that's actually currently in policy, and it's an opt-out now, which I appreciate the trustees and teaching and learning school leadership for putting that in, because now it's an opt-out situation for parents instead of an opt-in situation.
And when was that put in place?
This past school year, I think, was our first enacted year.
Okay, all right, awesome, thank you. I think that's just kind of important because obviously it does dial all the way back to elementary school like she referenced.
Yep, I love the questions. These are good things, and I'm glad we're here listening to it.
Thank you.
So I have a question about correction. So all of that I heard, I'm going, oh, good, we already screwed up. And we've crashed and burned. And so how do you pick up the pieces if that's already not in a line?
So my job is triage. This is why it takes an expert. And at some point, we're going to convince everyone that this has to be more of a focus, which is why I'm really excited to be here tonight. So there's a couple of things. So first and foremost, when a student comes in their senior year, we're going to take a look at everything and we're going to see how we can get there by hook or crook. The other thing that I can say is that, if we need to have some conversations or do some professional development about what these choices look like and what colleges are looking for with staff, just to get people all on the same page, I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to offer myself as a resource. Again, like I said, 15 years at Bryan Adams, like this feels like my second family, and I want to figure out how we can figure it out. The really great thing is we're great at triage. We've had kids go on and do really amazing things in spite of some of these challenges. This year will be my most challenging year yet, I will say that, with the post-COVID problems. But however I can help to figure out, realign, put it back together, but also just reassure you that some of the ways that we can do that is by further education, and that, the sooner we start on trying to realign and figure these things out, the sooner we're going to have some better solutions in place that will benefit more students.
Don, I appreciate your question. Can you be more specific maybe on what your concern might be as a parent when you're feeling this way? Because I just want you to know I sent a student to Texas Tech a year and a half ago. And so I went through this whole thing as a parent, and it's totally different from an educator's perspective as it is from a parent's perspective. I can attest to that, but just tell me what your concerns are.
Well, I think it's directly COVID related, and it's just, okay, maybe they were taking the right classes, but they weren't making the right grades. And if rankings, I know some schools ranking is a lot more competitive, other schools ranking is a little less competitive. but how do you figure that stuff out about where they're falling? And unfortunately, I believe watching this program just created a whole world of anxiety in my household that I'm going to be addressing after this.
Don, let me answer this, and then I want Sarah to respond. But just for an example, my son started his high school career at the end of his freshman year. He was ranked number 22 in his class. He had some personal things come up, and that happened but he took all the right courses because I made him. Okay. That was the thing. I did make him take the right courses. Now, he didn't do great academically in terms of GPA wise, but he did pass the exams. And so here's what happened in my family. This is with an educator. My wife's in education as well. He didn't get to go to Texas A&M, his college of choice, because of his GPA. However, he did get to go to Texas Tech, and he had like 39 college credit hours. So he was already, considered almost a sophomore by the time he entered in, even though his GPA didn't reflect it. He got the College Board classes because he passed the exams. So that was my specific example. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, but what had to happen was a conversation with, honestly, Sarah, my son, and myself, and just the reality of what's the true reality in the situation, right? Like, I can want a certain type of car, but I can't afford it, right? I can want certain things, and we have to sometimes have that conversation, and it's just the reality of where we're at. But it's a lot easier, Don, if someone else tells it to your kid. And I promise you, I had these conversations with my child, even though I'm in education and I could be considered an expert maybe by some, he still wasn't listening to me. So it will take another expert to have that conversation, but I'll let you respond as well, Sarah.
Yeah, so Don.
Okay, Don, my point is you're going to be okay, Don, and your child will be also.
I'm going to say that your child is going to be okay because you're Bryan Adams and you have this amazing team.
Well, we're not at Bryan Adams.
Not yet. Where are you?
No, currently we're at Skyline.
Oh no! You need to come to Bryan Adams.
Well, this is
but
part of the current discussion.
But they're a
Okay,
longtime
so
Sanger family.
Yes.
all right.
Rip.
Well, okay, so here's the deal. Yeah, it's going to be okay. First of all, Mr. Castle is right. It's going to be okay because, number one, colleges do understand that COVID did happen and things happened. But he also said something else that's really important, and it's also what we talk to students about is you're going to need to have more than one dream school, particularly if you've had these challenges and things that have happened. I like to tell students that unless they write me a 5-page paper on why a particular college is their dream school, it's not really their dream school, it's just what they know. So making sure that you're working closely with your college advisor, and I'm sure that Skyline has a college advisor, but I can also tell you that it is not ASB, and we do things differently than other college access programs. So you're definitely more than welcome to come to Bryan Adams. You can also come to North Dallas or Woodrow. But I do really want to reaffirm the idea that what is in your student's application is going to matter. So if there is a spot that you get to explain extenuating circumstances, it's not a place to write excuses. It is a place to write, this is what happened. This is why this is the way that it is. The other half is you control the controllables. So if that's making good grades right now, if that's writing a really amazing college essay, if that's going to get teacher recommendations from teachers who will say, yeah, this kid is really amazing. Here's what they do. They come to tutoring. I've seen them grow in the last year. I know what happened during COVID. So making sure that you have those recommendation letters as well. So you have another adult validating that, yes, your kid can come to college, because ultimately it comes down to 3 questions. Will the student come? Will they be successful? And will they go on to be a credit to the institution? And students, while the transcript is an important part, they have control over what's in their application and how thoroughly they fill that out. They have control over their college essay and how much they write and what they say and how they say it. And then they have control over who they ask for teacher recommendations. And I always say that you want to go with the teacher who knows you best, not the hardest teacher at your high school, not the hardest class that you took, the person who knows you the best and is going to be able to say really amazing things about you. Not who your best friend is asking, but who is going to know you the best. And students do have control over all those things. And then as a parent, you also have to think about applying more broadly. And that's particularly true in COVID, just because of the increase in applications to certain institutions. Nobody is guaranteed a spot. We have valedictorians get rejected from their top choices all the time. So making sure you're casting that broad net, and then, you know, being honest about where it is. I know that it was a hard day when I sat with Mr. Castle's son and said, you're not getting into Texas A&M. And it was a hard day for him too. It didn't mean that we weren't going to do it. We weren't going to try. We didn't not encourage him to submit the application, but I wanted to let him know that it would be hard. And he got excited about other schools. I gave him a list and he went and did his own research and came back. And I think that that's also the part that we don't talk about enough. And that's why I hate this idea of dream school. I don't like this idea of fixating on a certain institution. There are multiple institutions where students can be successful, and our job is to help them apply to as many of those as possible, and then compare and make the best decision for a family once they have all of the information available to them.
Thank you.
Great share and question, Dawn. And Dawn, you're always welcome. We're glad you're here. Dawn was with us back when we started as a concerned and progressive Sanger parent. So thank you, Dawn. You're always welcome with us. Any other questions for Sarah or anyone else? While we're waiting, you do see that I did, hope that was okay with Sarah. I did include Sarah's email in the chat and the website to ASP for more resources. And I will share out the whole, tonight's whole recording. Again, thank you, Megan, for being my recording reminder tomorrow. And I'll include the chat as well in that post on the DBA website. Any more questions? Okay. I think I want to give our schools an opportunity to, if they would like to share updates, they may. I will be happy to stay here as long as anybody wants to stay with us or with me. And if you want to share updates, you can. Anybody wants to drop off, needs to get home, needs to get to dinner, we totally understand. Before we go any further, I want to again thank Sarah for a fantastic presentation again. Mr. Castle, also, while we're waiting, real quick, did you have any updates from your feeder to give, or from your group to share with us, since you weren't able to at the beginning?
I appreciate it. I think I kind of mentioned it in terms of what we're going to be doing with master schedule and what's coming up for people to start paying attention to that. And then obviously, there is something that is coming through the district. It'll probably be going to the board tomorrow in terms of the reset centers and making some adjustments. There has been historically, nationally, or not historically, nationally, there has been a lot going on in schools in terms of discipline. And so there was some feedback that was given by principals to school leadership and to Sherry Christian, and that team is really working on making some adjustments. So there will be some changes going into the spring that give some schools some different options when it comes to disciplining students. And so that's something that is coming down. Just want to share that out. But it's just kind of recognizing where we are at the time. And I heard Sarah mention this multiple times. It's just this last 2 years have been crazy for us to kind of recognize where that is and keep supporting each other, keep supporting our kids. The master schedule for our principals is very important because it sets the foundation of what our kids get to offer or is offered to take. And we hear this, and I love how parents are, getting this ahas like, oh heck, fifth grade, this is when we need to make these decisions. We need to really be involved in that. And so I'm just really thankful that we're having these conversations, and thanks Lane for hosting this tonight too, because it sounds to me like, Sarah, you're going to be on the road for a while now. Probably I can see Mockler over there having some ideas to get you into our middle school to start talking to kids sooner than later. So I do appreciate all of that, but appreciate you guys. Sorry I was late. I had a meeting with a parent at another school in a different feeder pattern. So
never sorry needed. All right, thank you, Mr. Castle. Did any do I don't want to take away from anybody that would like to share their school updates. Starting with our middle schools, I'll just kind of go down the line and see if you're here. And again, anyone feel free to drop off. We know it's late, but I want to give everyone an opportunity if they'd like to. If we start off tonight with Sanger, if we have a Sanger representative, and I'll just go through the list and.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
All right.
I'll be quick because I know we are a little
Sure.
behind on time. And
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so for November, we hosted the robotics tournament at our campus, and that was super awesome. We also did our virtual open house in November, along with our camp food drive. Coming up, we do have our first winter wonderland for our middle school, which is a dance. We are also kicking off our middle school breakfast club, which includes a cleanup at the campus and then some food, followed by a chess tournament. And we have our spelling bee coming up this Friday. And then we also did start our holiday spirit kind of event where we can dress up. And this is just to help promote positive culture in our campus. And we are getting ready for our ACPs for our 3rd through 8th graders. Thank you so much for staying on the line. I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, Ms. Thurio. We appreciate you being on and staying with us. All right, going over to Hill. Do we have a representative?
Yes, good evening. I'm Caitlin Miller. I'm one of the assistant principals over at Hill as well. I'll be quick. We had a very successful community fair on November 18th / open house. Bryan Adams was present. We had the robotics, the bells, the band. We had many community members, people doing yoga, students leading dance, and then all of our extracurriculars also had a booth. So parents and students in the community can learn about our school. We also had a nonprofit donate 500 winter coats. So all the students and families got winter coats for their families, and we're even able to save some for students that we know are in need who couldn't make the vet. So it was really amazing. This Friday, we're having our first annual Girls Night Out. It's for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. They can wear pajamas. It's from 4 to 7. They'll be talking about things like body image, acceptance, conflict resolution, how to be leaders, hygiene, things like that. And we're getting donations from community members to make them little goodie bags to leave. So we're really excited about that. We're also getting ready for ACPs. We have our final Saturday school of the semester this Saturday for all 4 contents from 9 to 12. And then last, we are also focusing on school culture as well during this final stretch. So we are doing our December to remember right now. So all the days until we get out, we have something fun planned for the teachers, spirit days, breakfast, treats, things like that. And that is all from Hill. Thank y'all.
Thanks so much, Ms. Wendell. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to Gaston, Principal Mockler.
All right. Yes, we have had quite a lot of things going on. Girls basketball tonight, a lot of great sporting things. One thing I really want to shout out is Coach Saldana. Even though he doesn't do our UIL sports, he's been working with our 6th grade boys soccer team, and they just won the indoor championship. And then not only that, he's gone above and beyond. They visited 2 Dallas area colleges. They just started passing out meals to the homeless on the weekend. And after that, they go and enjoy a pizza meal. So I just wanted to shout that out, because to see a staff member not just helping with sports, but closing the opportunity gap is aligned to some of those things that we were discussing. We have a dance performance, band performance, and theater performance happening in the next 2 weeks that we're all really, really excited about. And we're actually going to be hosting BA in one of their performances coming up next week, because one of their areas wasn't available. So trying to focus on that feeder pattern connection. We're making some awesome changes with our master schedule that the staff voted on this week. And we'll actually be adopting, in order to align better to Bryan Adams, their AB schedule, which is actually allowing us for the first time in a while to have a choir class, bringing over Miss Ravi from BA for 2nd semester, so that we can continue to increase that alignment, because we want that feeder pattern alignment to be there so that when our kids leave here, they already have that next step and are primed. So really excited, met with her and AP Yeager today. We will be having a Saturday school this Saturday, helping our kids gear up for ACPs. And then last but not least, just a lot of fun stuff for the kids and staff before we go out. We're doing our December of Jingle Bells, which are a way to wear jeans every day with a Christmas theme for all of the staff. We're having a pajama party contest, appropriate pajama party contest for all the kids before we go, an honor roll party. And then we had a really great success with our new tardy system, having no tardy parties to celebrate the kids being present and on time. So we will be ending the year with one last no tardy party for the kids who've gone above and beyond and haven't had any all year. And that is it.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Mockler. All right. Moving on to Keast Elementary. Do we have, is Principal Rubio or someone else here with us? All right. Moving down to Riley with Principal O'Neill. Larry Smith, is Tina still with us?
Yes, Larry Smith is here.
All right. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. If you can allow me to share, okay, great.
Please, you're free to start.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. All right, and so just real quick, just wanted to start off by sharing that we have been busy preparing and reviewing for the ACP, which we will administer as a campus on December 14th. Today, we had our school-wide spelling bee today, which was a success, and we do have a winner that we're going to move on to the district as well as the national spelling bee competitions. We have also competed in the robotics competition last month. We were one of the host schools, and our team placed third, and so we're very, very excited about that. Also, just wanted to point out that we are also celebrating the 12 days of Christmas starting tomorrow. And of course, we will be treating our staff to just some wonderful Christmas desserts, as well as other holiday treats. We will have Ugly Sweater Day, as well as Sweatsuit Day, allowing our staff to wear their sweatsuits. And then last but not least, I just want to just share with you, we are supporting our District Choose Dallas campaign. And I have our website up for you all. And so what we did recently, we updated the virtual tour of our campus. And could everyone see this? Because this is kind of not cooperating with me for whatever reason. All right, let me just hit refresh. And I just want to just share with you what we've done. And so the goal here is to recruit prospective students as well as families. And so we've done a virtual tour, provided a virtual tour of our exterior of our campus, highlighting also our garden, our library, our wonderful gym.
Love this, very
as well as our auditorium and lunchroom. And so as of today, we have 775 students. And so Principal Moore is going to get me for sharing this, but the goal is to increase that by 25 by the end of the school year. And so we're optimistic about that. And so again, we want our community to choose Larry Smith as opposed to St. Pius and some of our other neighboring schools. And so that's all I have. Thank you so very much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. This is a phenomenal example of why we have this section of DBA to share great ideas. And I think this is an awesome idea for not only to show off the school through tours, but in this situation, in our current situation of not being able to do in-person tours a lot, this is great. So thank you again. Thanks for being here. All right, moving on now to a representative from Charles Gill Elementary.
Good evening. I'm Chandra Robertson, principal at Charles Gill Elementary. Just a couple of quick things that I'll go through. super excited about our 13 days of holiday cheer. We began that today with our scholars and our staff. So we have a different attire every day and they do different gifts and we're doing a whole gift exchange. We're also doing something fun called Elf. You've been elfed. So it's a good, fun way to make all the staff pretty much participate with snack giving, different things like that. Our bulletin boards are decorated to kind of celebrate the season and still align with our collegiate themes. Couple of things our scholars are excited to be participating in. Our Lion King production is coming up early in the spring. So my drama teacher, Mr. Turney, is doing an awesome job working on that. Scholars are very excited about it and they're talking about it all throughout the building. We're super excited about our robotics team and the work that they're doing. We are sending one of our scholars to the district spelling bee. So he's extremely proud. He's always walking around with his little #1 trophy saying Bulldog Pride, and I'm going to this district spelling bee. So he's super excited to be participating. And then finally, one of the things that I actually did enjoy hearing from Sarah today, because we've actually been working with our 5th graders on making decisions about what middle schools work best for them. So we have a lot of scholars, of course, who are interested in Hill, but then I have some scholars that are like, hey, I want to go to Solar Prep because I know that that's kind of my career path. They're already thinking like that. So it's pretty cool to hear some of the things that she's talking about and knowing that it really does begin at the elementary level if you're truly involved like that. So just a quick few things with Gill. Oh, lastly, and just our coats, toys, bikes, and food donations. We have a lot of donors for the holidays that are really up for giving to our scholars. So super excited about that as well. That's it for Charles Gill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Fantastic. Moving on to Reinhardt. All right, Principal Kendi, you're up next with the Bales update, please.
Good afternoon. Bales has been doing a lot of things. November was a great month. We had our student leadership. We had elections. And so we have a student leadership that consists of a president and a vice president for the school. Each grade level from 3rd through 5th elected a vice president and president for their grade level. And then we have a core of students that's like a Senate so that we have a lighthouse. And so we've got student voice and we're excited about that. We're also preparing for the ACP. We have Bryan Adams coming, the band coming on December the 9th. So we're very excited, already advertising. Our 5th graders are really excited about having them to come. We had our leaders to volunteer at the opening of the new park on Highland Road as a guest of, well, we volunteered with the Ferguson Road Initiative. We are having our spelling bee on tomorrow. We also have a donation of coats that's coming for every student on the campus from one of our donors. We also received the donation today from the Claremont Addition Neighborhood Association of $1,500. So we're just excited about building our community relationships and partnerships. We have house meetings and celebrations prior to the end of this semester. We have our SBDM meeting on tomorrow, PTO on December the 16th. We're of course applying to be a choice campus, a leadership academy. And we're also doing our December to Remember for our staff and students. And that's going to be just like everybody else. We get to wear different attire. We'll be having hot chocolate and snacks on Monday and just every day doing something to build up the culture on the campus. Something else we came up with, because attendance seems to be kind of up and down, we're doing something called Pridefully Present. And it's like when we come to BA, you know how you stamp when you go to different stations, where they're going to get a stamp for every day that they're present. And then there'll be a drawing each week. And if they're on time, they get their name in more than once. So they're really excited about that. And we're looking forward to starting that on Monday because we want everyone to be at school every day for those 2 weeks. And so the Pridefully Present is going to be for staff and teachers as well as the students. And I think that is about, oh, we did have our virtual open house on November the 18th as well. So that's about it for Bales.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. I also want to give you a shout out. It was a couple of years ago, that my son had gone up for spelling bee. And then we had our, I guess, I don't know if it's the feed or the district, but it was at Bales. And he had a beautiful school, and we all felt very welcome there. So thank you again, as always. All right, moving on. Next is Casaview. All right, and I'm going to move on to last but certainly not least, thanks for hanging all night, Principal Shaw. And you get to be first of the elementary group next week. Of course, you'll go to the top of the list as each month.
Woohoo. All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for staying on. So we also had our spelling bee today. It was so much fun, so exciting. The top two got some massive trophies. So Mr. Shannon, if I recall, because we didn't do spelling bee last year, I think your daughter is our reigning champ. So it was fun. We had a good time today. So going along with that, we also have our book fair happening this week, which is exciting. It's our first one in quite a long time since COVID. So very excited, and families are able to sign up for after school slots to come in and shop safely as a family. The big event that we had right before the break was just our Thanksgiving food drive. Every grade level was responsible for bringing some type of different item, and the community just really came through. The entire stage was full, and the 5th grade team was able to put together lots and lots of boxes, not just Thanksgiving meal food, but just food for the week for families. So that was a great success, and we just really thank the community for stepping up for our Thanksgiving drive. We're also doing 12 days to winter break, just like everybody else. So it starts with just teachers and staff. And we have some dress up days, and then we have games every day in the main office. There's some kind of game that's happening for the staff every day, and they're very competitive. So it starts tomorrow. It's going to be on. And then we will finish out the semester with 12 days to winter break with bringing in the children for theme days and things like that. So they'll join us in the last half of it. And then just the last one, we are also celebrating our newly elected current teacher of the year. 5th grade teacher, Ms. Youngblood, is our teacher of the year. So we are so excited and so proud of her, and she is the perfect example, the perfect person to represent our Hexter staff. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you so much. Now moving on to anyone that else that is here that would like to share an update from the community, parent, student. Don't often have students, but love them to come if they. Anybody that has another update to share. All right, going once, going twice. Well, that does it, guys. This might have been. Do we have someone?
Yeah, you mind if I do a quick update?
Yes, Mr. Delgado, please go ahead.
We just started playoffs for esports, so we have 2 teams in playoffs. Rocket League is going. We have Super Smash Brothers going. They both, I think, won today. The Rocket League one's kind of iffy because the other team left before finishing, so I think that's a win, but I don't know. So we are in playoffs again for the 3rd time this is the 3rd year in a row we've made playoffs for Play Versus. We were out at the middle schools. I heard that our esports tables got a lot of cool stuff, or a lot of interest. So hopefully we'll keep seeing people come up. And then Mr. Bott earlier put a link to all our programs at BA. I'm currently working on updating our student activities profile for the district, but we do have over 50 different student activities at BA, with sports, with also, we do applications, we do academics, we do leadership, we do service clubs. So it is awesome place to get in as a freshman and just kind of figure out where you fit or create something if you don't fit anywhere. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our teachers, because last year we had 70% of our teachers or so that were involved in an organization in some way. And that was kind of amazing. So.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Delgado. And thanks as always for being one of our great coaches and coordinators. Anyone else? All right, well, 108 minutes, I believe we've spent together. Thank you guys for probably one of our longer ones. I'm sorry, 98 minutes. But we're going to come back next month on Wednesday, January 5th, same time. I think we'll have Mr. Bott is going to, or some from his team or himself will talk to us about a little more again about extracurricular activities. And also, I think that'd be a great time for us to just open up for a little more on Q&A for, it's January for applying to schools, and any questions you have to help you get through that. I think that'd be a good opportunity for that. Before we close it out, anyone else, any comments, any questions? Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Lane. We'll see y'all, and Merry Christmas if we don't see you guys.
That's right.
Thank
Happy
you,
holidays.
Lane.
Merry Christmas.
Thank
Yes,
y'all. Have a
thank
great
you.
night.
Have a good break.
Thank you.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Bye. Bye, Lane.